Welcome to episode 11 of Marathon Talk, powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors. On this week's show, we'll be taking a look at the drama that went down under at the World Cross Country Championships. We look at the upcoming World Championships marathon course just revealed in Budapest for this summer. We'll be delivering some more spring marathon training wisdom. It's long-run focused. And ahead of the Tokyo Marathon, we meet a man whose 6-star medal is more than 40 years in the making. All right, let's go.
Dina, how are you? It's been, 12 days since we last recorded? 12, 13 days since we last recorded. You've had a massive birthday. It's been Valentine's Day. There's been so much going on. Like, what's the last couple of weeks held for you?
I have a big reveal for you, Martin, what I did for my birthday. Okay. I had some girlfriends over to my house.
I'm nervous where this is going, but come on.
I know, because I told you that I wasn't going to tell you until we were recording, because I was an English major, so I really like alliteration. So we did brunch and bubbles.
Yes.
And Botox.
No.
I got Botox on my birthday. It's why I can't scowl at you right now. Sometimes I scowl at you when you tease me. I can't scowl. And to add another B, in my midlife crisis, I cut myself some bangs that night. So it was all about B's on my birthday. Bubbles, wow. Botox, brunch, bangs. That was it. That's what I did.
Should I have noticed? Because when we record, I think maybe what I should have done is gone, Dina. Because of course I can see Dina, although if you're listening to the podcast, so it's only audio, but I can see Dina. Maybe I feel bad now that I should have gone, Dina, you look amazing. But there you go. So I'm saying it now. You look amazing.
How did you just celebrate a birthday and now you look younger?
Wow.
How does that happen?
Where did those 20 years ago?
I was so scared because I spend so much time and energy thinking about what I'm putting in my body. It's organic. Everything is pure and fresh from the farm within a couple of days of getting it delivered to my front door. And I'm careful about what I put on my body. It has to be cruelty free and no bad chemicals. And then I go and put inject Botox into my muscles and my forehead. So I'm still having like a moral dilemma about it, but it's done. And I don't have my racing scowl anymore.
Is it, look, I am not an expert in these things. Have you seen my forehead? I'm just not an expert in these things. I'm kind of seasoning, as I'm getting older a little bit. But would you have it done again? So my limited understanding of this is that once you've kind of done the Botox thing, it lasts for a certain time and then kind of you got to keep doing it. Otherwise you end up what are those characters called on Star Trek?
I'm not going to look like an avatar anytime soon. No, it is not my gateway to doing more of this or even getting a pound of flesh removed from my face. I'm done. I think it was just a fun, kind of gimmicky, almost cliche thing to do for a 50th birthday. But you also celebrated your birthday while we were on these 2 weeks off. And I'm dying to know how that went.
I was 51. I didn't do anything. Absolutely nothing. We didn't do anything.
You didn't go for a walk or eat cake? You eat cake?
We did have a birthday cake. Yeah, did have a birthday cake. The kids were amazing. So my daughter did make me a lovely, she always makes me some crafty little thing on my birthday. And last year she made me this little thing out of rocks and it says Dad Rocks on it. And it's a picture of me and her made out of pebbles, which is really lovely. And this year she wrote me a big long, a thing, I guess, a big long thing saying, Dad, you're really ace and I really look up to you. And what she'd done is she's taken words and she'd replaced, instead of writing the words, she'd put chocolate bars in. So one of them was a lion bar and another one was a packet of poppets. I don't know if this means anything to you, and she'd replace the word in the sentence with the chocolate. Yeah. So she said something you're bringing me up to be a real lion girl, so the word was lion.
That is
and the
so
chocolate bar was
sweet.
there. So She was lovely. Yeah, I've eaten it all as well.
She's quite creative for such a young age. I feel like she got the creative gene in your family.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much. She did. She definitely did. It was half term here too, which is a little holiday, like a break, like spring break. I think that's, if I was near you, that'd be it. All the kids jumping in the lakes and things. It was half term here. I dropped in a painful park run, 5K, slower than I did it last time, Dina, getting slower.
It's because of all the candy bars you ate from your daughter's letter. You got to back off those candy bars.
I was convincingly taken to the cleaners by children and old men. So it was like brilliant. There was like tiny kids just kicking me. So that was all right. It was Valentine's Day too. Of course, I didn't do too much on Valentine's Day either. Niz and I, we didn't have a particularly romantic day. I went for a bike ride, a lovely bike ride, just quickly. One of my great, great friends who I've known for 32 years. I'm going to give him a big shout out. Mark Booth, fantastic guy. But unfortunately, just a month ago, he was diagnosed with stage 4 brain tumor. So it was pretty serious stuff. And knocked me for 6, actually. Knocked me quite hard because I've known him like over half my life. He coached me to 2 national titles. And, he's fairly invincible as a guy. So this was a big shock. And then last Wednesday, he said, I'm going for a bike ride because he still had all his movement and everything else. But he was told he really shouldn't be upright. And to choose whether or not he wanted an operation to attempt to remove the tumour. So he said, I'm going to have the op, and he invited me up to go biking with him. So I did. So that was the 15th of February for me. I went up and I rode a bike with a great friend of mine. The day before he went into hospital, 100 people turned up for the ride.
Oh, wow.
We cycled around Milton Keynes. It was outstandingly good, and it was outstandingly challenging.
What a testament to Mark's strength that this was what he chose to do the day before his operation, and a testament to his character that so many people showed up to ride with him. So do you know how the operation went?
Yes, I do, because he's one of those guys, and this is a really lovely thing, who makes everybody feel like you're his best friend. So he makes me feel like I'm his best mate. And he does that for everyone. So of course, you turn up and there's 100 other blokes there in this instance, a few women as well, but mainly it's like men who really look up to him for lots of different ways because he makes them all feel really special and really important. So it was good to go riding with him. He had the op and it went as well as it could for where we are. So we're all pretty relieved that,
Wow.
He sat up, he made a couple of jokes, my understanding is that it could be a lot worse. So yeah, come on, Boothie, keep yourself recovering in the right direction.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And here's to hoping that recovery ride is coming up and 100 people will be back in the saddle of their bikes riding with him.
That would be a dream, to go riding again. Yeah. I tell you what, though, I have made a bit of a mistake on this week's show, because coming up is an amazing interview, right, with Alfred Scaletta. Unfortunately, in the beginning of the interview, I thought Alfred was 72. So I say to him, oh, Alfred, welcome to the show. You're 72 and you've done 72 marathons. And we spend 3/4 of the interview with me thinking he's 72. And then right at the end of the interview, he says, at the end, actually, I'm 61. I aged the poor guy 11 years. And maybe that just, I don't know, it didn't. I made a mistake. So Alfred, if you're listening back to this, and anybody that knows Alfred, I know you're 61. And at the beginning of the interview, I say you're 72. And I'm just holding my hands up to apologise for the 11 years that I aged you. We'll have to have you back on the show when you are 72.
I'm just picturing you thinking as you're speaking to Alfred, like, wow, this guy looks so good. Running must be the fountain of youth. This guy's amazing, going for his 6th star in Tokyo. We've got a lot of news to cover because the World Cross Country Championships just took place this past weekend. They were in Bathurst in Australia, down under, and that course looked brutal. It was so insane. And on the women's side, it was this very dramatic finish with Letesenbet Gidey. She's the world champion, 3-time world record holder, looked like she had the win under her belt. And in the finishing stretch, they had these speed bumps in there. So don't leave it for a finishing kick. She stumbled and fell to the ground and got passed by Beatrice Chibet, who ended up being the winner. Someone came from the sidelines and helped Gidey up. And because of that, she came across the finish line, I think maybe in 4th place, but because she got assistance, she was disqualified from the race. What a heart-wrenching way to finish a brutal race like World Cross has turned out to be.
Yeah, and she looked amazing. She's obviously, like, I think, like world record holder. She's rapid and she wanted this. And I watched the race and I thought, she wants this race. Like, she was handing it to everybody. And we'll talk a little bit more about the course in a moment, but there was a section of the course where they did like this long straight, maybe a little downhill with a hard turn. Like a turn back on itself, a dead turn. And then from the dead turn, they went into these kind of tyres arranged in a chicane, so they had to go in and out. And as you watched Gidey come down to this turn, like her face, when she races, she has this deadpan look, right? And she doesn't give anything away. So normally when you see a race on the track, she's deadpan and like she's pushing pace and she's not grimacing and she gives nothing away. And if you look at the footage, she's got about 800 meters, a kilometer to go, and her face changes and she starts to grimace. And you think she's not smiling because she thinks she's got this nailed, because Chibet is still closing and still working hard. But you can see her mouth kind of drop and she's working. And I said to Liz, she's working for this. She's really working. And she comes around the final bend, and then you're right, she runs down towards the finish. It's only a couple of 100 meters, and you're thinking she's got it. She's got a beautiful style. Anyway, she's such a beautiful runner to watch when she's in full flight. And there's just these little rises in the ground and undulations where they've covered a road section on the course. And it looks like she takes one of those. But just as Chibet goes past her, what actually happens from my look is that her legs give up on her. She doesn't really trip. It's like that. I don't know if you've ever been there, but we've seen marathon runners and cross-country runners when they've absolutely given everything and their body just folds. Their legs actually give up on them. It's not like a trip over and she fell and she kind of got back up. She went into shutdown with about 20, 25 meters to go. Maybe a little further. It was hard to tell from the camera view, but her body went, I am done no more. And her legs collapsed under her. And Liz and I were shouting at the TV, actually, she needs medical assistance. Like, get medical assistance to her because she needs that first point of collapse. It's really important to get somebody on the course. As it was, as you said, I think it was an Ethiopian supporter who rushed out and he kind of grabbed her to her feet. And then she sort of stumbled over the line, almost like instinct to cross a finish line, and then, collapsed again. I'm thankful that she was actually okay. But of course, she was DQ'd. She showed on the results as 4th because 2nd came past to take the win, and then 3rd came past. And then by the time she'd been helped up and literally staggered with wobbling legs, proper wobbly legs, she collapsed over the line. I'm just glad she's okay.
Yeah, and that's a great, you summed it up perfectly because her legs looked like they buckled underneath her. And sometimes if you trip or fall in a race, you just like pop back up and you keep going. But she just sat there like she didn't have anything more. And that's, I love cross country for what it takes from us, but also what it gives us. But to learn from this, I learned from Beatrice Chibet, like always be there, right? I feel like Edna Kiplagat, who's been on our show before, she's always there. She didn't win the race, but she was there just close enough so that when the person gets disqualified in front of you, you are now the winner of the Boston Marathon. So always be there, right? Don't sell yourself short just because you didn't cross that finish line first, or you might be off your personal best a little bit. Keep pushing, keep getting to that finish line, because sometimes we make these breakthroughs in surprising ways. So be like Beatrice. It was going to be my mantra in my next race. Just be there.
We've never seen that before from Gide, right? So on the track over 5 and 10, where she's just exemplary, you know, she obviously doesn't push to that point of discomfort. And perhaps it was a course, you know, perhaps the demand of the course, it was a little bit different. It was very undulating. It was demanding. There were some challenges to the course. The wind, particularly for the men's race, when the storm came in, the wind and the changes took their toll. But yeah, it's definitely, I mean, you must remember some of the cross countries that you've done at World Cross, when, you know, the nature of the course makes the race so very different.
Absolutely. And this was not like, Gide is a rhythm runner, right? She locks into that pace and her long, beautiful stride. She couldn't utilize any of her strengths on this course. She's the 5,000, 10,000 meter half marathon world record holder. She's all about that consistency and rhythm in a fast pace. And she couldn't use those strengths to her advantage. Unfortunately, cross country really takes it out of you.
I think you've nailed it, Dina, there with that. That's such a good observation. She is a rhythm runner. And so, you know, what broke her was the fact that the course was not for rhythm runners. You know, in fact, probably the opposite. And that's good, because that's what cross country is about. It needed to be about changes in surface, changes in undulation, changes in pace, accelerations and slowing down. And of course, for Gide, that's not her major strength. And just in the last 50 meters, it really got on top of her. It was different in the men's race, and absolutely loaded, stellar kind of 20 guys were charging around the course. Ugandan, Kenyan, Ethiopian mainly. And it was Ugandan's Jacob Kiplimo who took the title. He looked quite surprised, actually. I think perhaps taking it off his fellow and reigning world champion Joshua Cheptegei was part of it. You know, he kind of looked a bit surprised, but it was a stellar run.
It was such a brilliant run by Jacob Kiplimo. I can't believe how smooth he looked on such a challenging course. He didn't look like he was meandering around or through the same obstacles as everybody else. And his picture post-race should be forever the poster child of cross country. The joy on his face, the authentic smile for getting a win in such a prestigious race against such prestigious runners. It was a priceless moment in the World Cross Country Championships this weekend.
Yeah, he 4 years ago, when he was only 18, he was the runner-up. So he's been chomping at this for a while, you know. But bronze medalist in 2021 at 10,000 in the Olympic Games and the World Championships at 10,000, another bronze medalist. So yeah, to take a title, must be nice to take a title. As we talk a little bit about the course, because the course was challenging. It was Mount Panorama in Bathurst, and I'm sure, you know, that area for many Australians perhaps well known for running, but I kind of didn't really know what it was going to be like. And intriguingly, although it was a constructed course, sometimes we see like cross country constructed in an odd way. This made really strong use of the natural terrain, very hilly, very intense, like lots of ups, lots of downs, but it also made use of some interesting and intriguing little man-made challenges, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I was mentally exhausted looking at this course ahead of the races. Just how do you navigate that? I don't think I would have slept the night before the race if I was running there, because there was so much to think about with the tires staggered on the course. They Some people were thinking of hurdling them. I can't imagine hurdling anything in a cross-country race with how taxing the race is already, but running the tangents as you navigate through those obstacles, it was just, you just had to think the whole time. You had to be attacking whatever portion of the course you were on, and then thinking about how you were going to navigate this next section, whether that was a hill, tires, speed bumps, whether you wanted to choose between Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, or Shiraz in the vines you ran down. You got to choose.
It was labelled, wasn't it? There was like 3 gantries with these different names for grape varieties, and you had to choose one. Although most people, I didn't quite get that, because the shortest line was the best one to choose, right? The lines were slightly different in distance. So I was like, why would you choose the longer one? It's well known for motorsport there, of course. And so there was these motorsport tyres as well everywhere, making up the slaloms and the challenges. Dina, as you quite rightly handed to me a few weeks ago, you've won a couple of silver medals at the World Cross. If you were doing this course, how would you have attacked it? How would you have run it?
Well, it's interesting. I think if I knew ahead of time, I would have trained a little bit like that, right? Like putting obstacles in my way, so I had to quickly get back into stride again. I think tangents are always important, but as I've mostly raced like that, if there was mud on the inside corner, I'd probably swing a little wider so that I wasn't slipping and risking an injury coming on. So it was definitely a challenging course to navigate. And I think what I've learned in World Cross is you attack everything. Whatever obstacles in front of you, or even the downhill where you think, oh, I'll just coast down the hill and recover a little. No, you attack that also. It was just, you have to have in your mentality, which is way different than marathon training, that you use every portion of the course to just keep pushing, attack a little harder. And so I found this course fascinating. It actually made me think, well, gosh, what would I do if I were the person with the sketch pad making up a course? Like, what would you do? How would you throw in some obstacles? Is there any fun challenges you think you'd like to see if you were if you got to build this course and then spectate the best in the world trying to attack not just the competition, but also what you provided for them? What would you do?
Well, your use of words there is really clever, isn't it? Because it's like attack everything, and you're letting a little bit of your secret mentality out there for cross country racing. It's like attack everything in cross country running and attack nothing almost in marathon running. It's almost a completely different approach, isn't it? So what would I do? Well, we've seen recently in the European Cross Country Championships, they ran through a horse museum. It went indoors, didn't it? But the things that it had in common was undulations. I'm a bit of a traditionalist with cross country. What would I like to see in a cross country course? Mud and a reasonable amount of it. So it's a challenge to run through. Hills, ups and downs, turns to allow an acceleration, to make it more of a race which is about courage to run, courage to attack, and take the race away from the rhythm runner, so that it would give that spread of capacity, I guess. What would I do in terms of funky little thing? I don't know. I quite like it when they run through tunnels, so we spoke about a long tunnel, didn't we? Maybe I'd dig a hole in a hill or something, so you have to go underground. And then if you went underground, Dina, you could go in at one point, you wouldn't know where you'd come out if there was lots of different tunnels to choose from. I don't know, maybe we're getting carried away.
Oh, that sounds fun though. And would the tunnels be dark?
Yeah, they'd have to be.
I think the tunnels should be dark. Well, if I were to make up this course, it would be at altitude and also have snow. So you'd have to run, you're talking mud. And I actually love the look when people finish muddy races and they're just splattered because of the back kick of the person in front of them. So I love cross country. Cross country is my first love, but I would like to throw in some altitude and snow to really see a little more suffering going on.
Yeah, there we go. There she is. Look, bringing in the suffering, attack everything, suffer more.
Yeah.
Right, speaking of suffering more, the 2023 World Championships route has been revealed for the marathon. Another World Championships is almost upon us this year. It's the route for the Worlds in Budapest, which has been shared this week. The route features a 10K loop, which is getting quite common in championship marathon running, isn't it? To run a loop. I guess that's better for spectators and much easier logistically for organisers.
Most definitely. I think everybody wins in that, right? The spectators get to see you multiple times. And then for the organizing committee, it's the water bottles and fluids for the athletes are contained on just a few tables, and it's consistent. You don't have to get permits to take over the whole city, but it is quite a scenic course that they've put together. It crosses the Danube River. They go through a tunnel.
They just copied me.
Yes. Yeah, there you go.
I'm concerned. I mean, it sort of almost looks a bit like it's got this little loop in it, but at one point on the course, there's something called the House of Terror Museum. The House of Terror. I mean, who wants that? Who wants that on the marathon route? It's the House of Terror. Brilliant.
I'm not sure what the House of Terror is, but I picture it kind of like a wax museum, because wax museums are really scary to me to see wax versions of humans that have passed. So that's what I picture in my head. I don't know. What would your House of Terror be? Me, it's a wax museum. That's what I picture it as.
It looks fast. It starts and finishes at Heroes Square. Then there's this fast out and back. There's only one small climb over a bridge, over what's called Chain Bridge, which was first opened in 1849. Then it goes under Budapest Castle through a tunnel. And then out again, and then kind of out and back, and four laps. Looks really good for spectators because you'll see like either side of the road and round and back again. Does look fast as well. Of course, Budapest sees over 100,000 people every year running in the Budapest Marathon, the Budapest Half. So yeah, it's a bit of a running city. So let's see. It should be good to watch. We'll get to watch it.
Yeah. So this course is for the marathons and the race walk, and it's going to be free for spectators. So that's great that people can get on the course and be a part of the World Championships without having to buy a ticket to go into the arena. So we'll see you in Budapest.
They start early, which we've seen in previous championships. You know, maybe some challenges over start times. You know, like later in the day, and environmental conditions tend to change in August, particularly in warmer countries, and that can be a real challenge. Women's marathon's on the 26th of August. Men's is on the 27th of August. And both start nice and early, 7 a.m. Are you a fan of an early start?
I am a fan of an early start. It's the coolest part of the day. And when you're looking at summer in Budapest, I think it's important to cater to those athletes. We've seen in other Olympics and World Championships, when they cater to television, athletes suffer a lot in the heat. And so it's good that they have the athletes in mind with an early morning start, so it can be the coolest possible temperatures. The only thing I didn't notice on the course was a lot of shade. I didn't see a lot of shade, but if it is possible to be running on the shady side of the street. So any of you marathoners out there that are running a little later into the spring in their marathons, or even training on their long runs, make sure you're running on picking a route that goes through trees so that you can get the sun off of you, or getting on the shady side of the street where the buildings are kind of blocking that direct sun's rays. You want to keep your body temperature down. That's part of the game. And that's all the marathon is. You're trying to get in all the energy you can, sustaining a pace that you've trained for. And another thing that you can do when the season starts to warm up is making sure you're keeping your body temperature cool.
During the last few episodes, we've been talking more about how you can get ready for your spring marathon with some training advice and guidance. And this week, with March fast approaching, February's the shortest month, isn't it? We've just got a few days left. With March fast approaching, we thought we would talk a little bit about mastering your long run, because the long run is such a powerful part of marathon build-up. Now, we're not going to be able to talk about everything long run because there's such a lot to talk about. We're just going to hopefully give you a few ideas for taking your long runs in March to the next level, because you've got to do them. They're so good for you physically. They're so good for you mentally. The demands of that sustained time on your feet, out running, they really do help build stamina, build endurance, build your running economy, build your efficiency. They help test your mind when things get really uncomfortable, which they will do. You've really got to learn how to hurt in a long run, haven't you, Dina?
Yes. And I was revealing to you when we were chatting before the show that I opted out of my long run this weekend. I had a 2-hour long run on the schedule, and my daughter hurt herself on the mountain. And I was just starting to get to that point where it was getting mentally tough and my legs were getting tired. And I thought, oh, I'll just jump in the car and go get my daughter on the mountain. So I cut my long run short by 15 minutes. And so I opted out, and I was mad at myself afterwards because I got to the mountain and my daughter was enjoying lunch with her friends. So I could have gotten in that 15 minutes, moral of the story.
Can't believe it.
I was a little angry with myself, letting the fatigue get the best of me, but that's the importance of really dedicating yourself to the long run. It is the most important training day of the week when we're talking about marathons.
And what's the kind of, how much focus would you put on pace in a long run? So let's say I'm trying to run, 4 hours, 3:58. Should I, and I've got a 20 miler coming up, should I be running it all at 3:58 pace? Should I be doing some of it slower? What's a good idea around controlling my pace?
Yeah, it's a great question, because you're never running marathon pace. At least I'm not during my marathon training, not in my long runs. But in the earlier part of the buildup, I just want to be on my feet for a certain amount of time. So it's about just getting in the time. And then as my training gets a little more specific, maybe into March, I'll be focusing on getting those times down, running it a little quicker, and focusing on getting on pace. The number one thing for me is not wanting to slow down in my long run, right? You want to either be consistent or get a little faster in the later miles. So that comes with a lot to handle, a lot to think about, because you need your nutrition with you. And I think we're talking about physically and mentally these long runs being important. I think what's also so critical is using these long runs as a marathon mentality. Like the night before, you're eating the foods that you want to eat before your marathon race. The morning of, you're testing breakfast on what settles well, what you can handle. You're getting your fluids down. I always recommend people to practice drinking the fluids that they serve on the course, unless you're going to be wearing a fuel belt, and then find something that you really enjoy drinking and eating, but also that settles well in your stomach. So there's so much going on, but that's why we need that big time block so that we can get all those parameters down.
And there's a lot of it's simulation, isn't it? Simulation practice. Let's simulate the demands of a marathon by running sections, and particularly the end, at really good pace, at or even faster than marathon pace for the, back third of a long run. Really replicates that feeling, teaches your body and mind, doesn't it, to cope with the pressure and the pain that you're most likely going to feel in a long run. That is, of course, if you do it and don't get in the car and bin it like Dina did,
Yeah.
You also get used to it, don't you? You get used to running a long run. And of course, sometimes a run in March for a spring marathon feels daunting. Oh, I've got a 22, which might be for some people, a 22 mile, probably the longest they're going to go, the longest they'll run ever, apart from marathon distance. And they want it to count. So they've lined everything up to race sim it so that it's a good replication of what's going to happen on race day. And then they bomb it, and it just goes all wrong. And that's happened, must have happened so many times. I think one of the most important things about a long run is to remember that it is not your race. And, a long run can set you up, but even when a long run doesn't go to plan, it still gives you a ton of ingredients for tackling race day well. So actually, I quite like long runs when you fail in your objective, because you can come back again, and you can have another go and you can learn something from that long run, and you don't leave your marathon race on the road in a long run. It's about taking the learning from a long run and then producing it in a race. Nobody remembers an amazing long run in training, right? They remember the execution of the long runs in training on race day.
Right. And those lessons you learn might be, oh, I shouldn't try to stay on pace running up this steep hill. It's about effort here. And then I'll get back on pace when it gets a little flatter. You might learn that, oh, I should start drinking my fluids before I'm really parched and thirsty. There's studies out there that show that on average, the human body can absorb 4 ounces of carbohydrate drinks every 20 minutes. And so that's a range. I played with that to try to get in more calories so I didn't hit the wall at the end of the marathon. But these are all things that you play with during the marathon buildup on the long run so that on race day, you've got all your checks and balances, all your ducks in a row, and you could just lay out your uniform. And you might be a little nervous, but you're pretty solid in what you know you can accomplish because you've done it every Sunday morning or whatever day of the week that you're taking on these long runs. So use them to build that confidence and build the right recipe for you to really be successful in your marathon.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, I think running a long run on your own is also really important. You don't have to do all of them on your own. Sometimes people get used to running socially and they might run at other people's pace or they might talk and they kind of, it's lovely to do a social run. But if you really want, your marathon to be your marathon, running a long run on the edge when it's just you and your head and your legs, like that gives you such a lot of long run prep. Right, if you are doing some long runs in the next few weeks for a spring marathon build up, practice like Dina says. Don't beat yourself up over how that long run goes. Progress them from week to week and then allow yourself to arrive at race day brimming with long run confidence. This week's Marathon Talk guest is Alfred Scaletta. American Masters runner Alfred, now age 72, has completed 38 World Marathon Majors. It's quite a haul with quite a history. In 1977, aged just 16, Alfred completed his first and also the inaugural Chicago Marathon in under 3 hours and 50 minutes. A couple of years later, in 1979, he won his age group, then aged 18 in 2:56. He went quicker in 1980, age 19, and then faster again in 1981, but this time in Boston, where he set his PB of 2 hours and 40 minutes. Then he had a 28-year break before making a majors comeback in 2009 in New York. In 2021, he ran Berlin. 2022 was London. And on March the 5th this year, Alfred is set to pick up his Abbott World Marathon Majors 6-star finishers medal in Tokyo. Welcome to Marathon Talk, Alfred.
Glad to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on the show. And we're going to unpack loads of your marathon experiences. We're going to start off with, though, the first one, 1977, then aged 16. You decided that running in your hometown in the very first marathon in Chicago would be a good idea. How on earth did that come about?
The way it came about was over the summer, I was training for the cross-country team, and I was running, and I was really enjoying it. And then when the fall came about, some of the kids talked me into playing, we call it the U.S. Soccer or football. So I ended up training for all this running, and I started playing soccer in high school. And then I saw this flyer about the Chicago Marathon in 1977. And I'm 16 years old, and I've done all this summer training. I thought, hey, I'm going to do this thing.
And we were chatting before we started recording. You've been a Chicago resident your whole life. When back in 77, as a 16-year-old, what was the feel for a marathon in the city? Of course, now it's huge and it kind of closes the city down and thousands of people get wildly excited. But back then, what was the feel?
Well, there was a lot of excitement because this was the very, very first Chicago Marathon that we were going to have. And back then you had the 1972 Olympics with Frank Shorter winning, which really got running started booming. And then in 76, they just had the marathon in Montreal. Frank came in second to the East German. So there was a lot of buzz in our town about running just because of what happened in the past two Olympics.
And as a 16-year-old, did you find that exciting? You know, because these days we kind of look at running and think, well, is it exciting for 16-year-olds? As a 16-year-old in Chicago in 77, you were hyped about doing a marathon.
I was hyped because we didn't have the internet back then or any video games I could play. So I had to go outside and play or run in this case.
And did you do any like prep kind of for it? Or did you think, I know you said you've done your football training, your soccer training, but did you specifically do any focused marathon training?
Actually, all the training I did was kind of on my own, and it was probably unusual nowadays because I actually ran on a abandoned railroad track from my home, which was about 6-7 miles to my school. So it actually helped me with my pacing because I had to make sure I hit the railroad ties at the right spot.
So you were thinking about it, though, as a 16-year-old, thinking about the distance and thinking about the race.
Yes, exactly.
What was the experience of that first event like?
Well, I can remember it pretty well because my parents drove me downtown, and it was pretty exciting to go downtown in Chicago because I'm about 35 miles outside of Chicago, so I don't go to the city all the time. So it was really exciting going downtown, and we actually lined up. There's a big, giant Picasso statue in downtown Chicago where we actually lined up for the race.
And I don't know how many people did it. Oh, there you go. I've just looked it up. 2,128 people. So you're part of quite an elite small field then.
Yeah, and it was a great rate, too. I think I spent under $10 for the entry fee.
Brilliant. And what do you remember about doing the race, going through the suburbs? What was the support like? Kind of what do you remember about the race itself?
Well, my goal was to finish the race because I've never done this before. So my goal was to finish the race, start off at a nice, easy pace, and also enjoy the city because I really liked the sights of the city and seeing the people. So it was really fun. I remember it was kind of warm and sunny. So weather was perfect.
Did you have any of those sort of classic marathon experiences that you may have had you've run tons of marathons since then, but did you cruise it? I know 350, was that comfortable? Did you suffer any?
350 actually felt pretty good, and I felt really exhilarated after the race. Normally you're a little wiped out, but I really felt pretty good, and I'm young, I've trained for it, and I thought 350 was pretty reasonable. And I felt like I could do more. So it kind of got me in the marathon itch, as you say.
And we've spoken, you've already kind of alluded a little bit to the running boom in the 70s, and particularly, Frank Shorter winning in 72. But that obviously set something off in you because over the next few years, you did Chicago every year and your marathon PR improved by, an hour and 10 minutes. So, what changed in your running as a 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old? Did you start running with other people? Did you start regularly training? What did that look like to make an hour leap?
That's a good question. So after I ran my first marathon and went with my American soccer team, the next year I actually tried out for cross country my senior year in high school, and I got to run with the group. I got to learn more about training, running together, doing intervals. So it was a whole new world for me, and I really enjoyed it. So from there, I started running more miles, and I really was able to run to school every morning. The school let me run to school, and they counted it as a gym period for me. So it was really nice. I got to run to school, take a shower, go to classes, and then I could run home. And then my brother would bring my books and stuff to school.
And were you coached by like the school cross country coach? Did you have any kind of outside support specific to marathoning, or kind of did you wing it? How did your training go?
Well, the training went specifically in the springtime. It was specifically track. So the most we could run was 2 miles. So we did a lot of intervals. So it was track, and then cross country was a little bit further, but it was still the races were 3 miles. But I was running close to 10 miles a day. So the training was about 10 miles a day, and the actual cross country events were about 3 miles. So that was pretty much the training I did.
And so age 19, when you set your PB or your PR, in Boston, that must have been pretty rapid as a 19-year-old in the 70s. Tell us about that race. Well, early 80s, sorry. You'd aged a bit then.
Yep. So I went to college and I tried out for my cross country team in college at the University of Illinois in Champaign. There was a lot of really good runners. I was able to train with them and work out with them during the fall. So from there, I was able to get my running base up because the races in college were about 6 miles. So that really opened me up to more running, more distance running, and feeling comfortable with it. So my sophomore year, I did not go out for the cross country team in college again, but I decided, hey, Boston's here. It's 19. I'm 19 years old. Minimum age in Boston back then was 19 years old. So I thought this was perfect timing for another adventure.
And you had to run under 250, I think, at the time to qualify.
Yes, I had to run under 250, and I was able to do that in Chicago. So I was pretty excited about that. So I qualified, I got my letter, and I was able to go to Boston with my dad.
So here's something. It's all seemingly going beautifully for you, right? In the late 70s and early 80s. Like running's going well. You've just run 240. Like there's a running boom in the US. What happened for the next 28 years?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I discovered girls. I had a girlfriend, so my lifestyle changed. So I had a girlfriend. I ended up getting married when I was 26, and I still ran, but I did not run anywhere near my marathon level. So I'd run 2-3 miles a day, maybe 10 a week, 10 miles at the most a week. So my lifestyle kind of changed. And so I was really excited about getting married, and I'm still married after 35 plus years to a lovely wife and 3 children. So we're married, and then we have kids. The kids get more active. I need to get more active. And then my brother, who's a year younger than me, was turning 40 and said, hey, I want to run a marathon. And, I was 41, and I'm like, the light bulb went off and said, hey, I'll train with you. I'll do it.
Mm-hmm. Did you run New York? Was that New York that you ran with your brother?
No, actually, that one was 2001. I ran with him in Baltimore. So it actually got me back in the marathon running again, which was kind of neat.
After a 20-year break, your brother decides to get you going again.
Exactly.
And what did you do back in Baltimore after a 20-year layoff? What did you run? We ran under 4 hours. I know that. And we ran together. We made sure we ran together, and we made sure we finished with both our hands up in the air. So because it was his first one, and it was my marathon after 20 years. So it felt like my first one too. So it was a very exciting moment with him in Boston or in Baltimore in 2001. One of the threads in all of your marathons, I don't know if this is the case for Tokyo because we haven't got this far, but in some of your marathons is a thread of family. And I didn't know that you'd run Baltimore with your brother in 2001, but I do know that you ran New York in 2009 because your nephew was doing it, and then a couple of years later you pitch up at Chicago with your daughter Emily when she was 16. So there's your brother, there's your nephew, and there's your daughter. There's a little bit of a family theme going on here.
Yes, and it's really exciting because my kids are all in their 20s now, and they're still physically active. My son majored in exercise science. He works out every day. My daughter, I have 2 daughters. One does yoga, one does spinning. So they're very active. So it's kind of neat that I've been able to carry that on to my kids.
Was it you that said to your daughter in 2011, Okay, so I did Chicago. I did Chicago when I was 16. You're going to do Chicago when you're 16, or was it the other way around?
Well, it was my daughter wanted to run a marathon before she was 16 because she saw me running around the neighborhood a lot, and they would ride their bikes while I was running. So I always told her that you could run your first marathon when you're 16 because that's when Dad ran his first marathon.
And how was it? Like hometown again? 77 was your first one. 2011, you're back, but this time with your daughter. I said. When I did the Hawaii Ironman, I don't know if you've heard of that. I did that in 2007.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, the only thing that would ever get me going near that event again would be if one of my children ever decided that, they wanted to do something like that or that. And they're not old enough yet. Thankfully, I've got a bit of time. But what was it like towing the line with your daughter in Chicago?
Well, that was a really special experience because she's a junior in high school. I was a junior in high school, and I ran my first marathon. And I'll never forget when we both started, she started running fast, and I kept on telling her, slow down, honey, slow down, honey, slow down, honey. I said that the whole race.
That's got to be difficult because, there's a relation, I've got a daughter, she's only 13 now, and there's this kind of, I couldn't imagine her listening to me at that point, slow down, yeah, or whatever, Dad. What do you know? What do you know? It was a little bit different for you in Boston and at Boston again in 2013. That was a terrible year for marathon running. And, the Boston bombings impacted many people's lives, and they were very close to impacting yours in a very significant way. Had it not been that you booked a flight a little bit too early.
Yes, I like to use my frequent flyer points, and I ended up booking my flight a little early. So I purposely ran the Boston Marathon a lot faster than I normally would so I could catch my flight. So I finished about 30 minutes before the bomb went off. So I literally finished the marathon. I grabbed my medal. I went to the hotel to grab my bag since I checked it. And then I got on the T train, which is the underground train, and it took me to the airport, and it actually stopped at the finish line because I was underneath the finish line. It said, hey, we got an incident. We're going to have to stop the train. And I was like, hey, I got to get to the airport. So I didn't know what was going on at the finish line yet. And so I actually was able to get on another train to get to the airport. I got to the airport, and then I started looking at the monitors and seeing what happened. And then I felt pretty lucky. I was able to be at the airport at that time.
Yeah, a very humbling experience, I guess, but also it must have been challenging sat in the airport thinking, I was there 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, it was. And I was literally on the airplane, and during this time, I think they shut off the cell phone service everywhere. So people were trying to get a hold of me during this whole time because they knew I ran the race and they didn't know what happened to me. And then eventually they did turn the phones on, and I was able to get some phone calls, a lot of phone calls in Texas.
So there's some worried people because you're obviously taking off. You're in the air. You can't pick up calls, but
right.
People didn't know you were there. And then you've had a little bit of a European kind of foray into marathon running in the last few years. COVID sort of got in the way of everyone's lives, right? For 2019, 2020, marathon running. At what point did you decide, having done Chicago, Boston, New York, when did you think, I'm going to try and get the Abbott World Marathon Majors 6-star? Because then, of course, you've been to Berlin, London, and Tokyo's coming up. When did you decide the 6-star was going to be a thing for you?
I actually decided during COVID because a lot of things changed. I didn't have to drive to work or drive to see customers. We were all work at home, and everybody's trying to adjust to a new way of living. And I always wake up at 4:40 in the morning to go running anyway, and then get to the office by 8 o'clock. But now that there was COVID, I could run, and I could run farther because I didn't have to drive to work. So it got me into better shape, and it made me think, hey, I can get this done. I can get the 6 majors done now with Berlin and London and now Tokyo. So that kind of was a revelation for me, and it actually I feel better now than I did when I was in my 30s. It's amazing.
Well, I mentioned at the start you're 72 and you've got a whole bunch of majors. So you're 72, right? And you've done 72 marathons. Is that correct?
Well, I'm actually 61, but I've done 72 marathons.
Sorry,
yep.
Where did I even read this to you? I even read to you in the beginning when I said you're now 72. I've aged you by 11 years.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good though. I'm looking good.
You're looking amazing for 72. Well, sorry, you've done 72 marathons, age 61. 38 of them have been majors. Out of the 5 so far, this is a really challenging question, right? But I think there's kind of a US dominance of your experience in marathon running, and then a little bit in Europe with Berlin and London. But like, which are any of them stand out to you? Okay, that was the one I really loved. And which one was it?
Well, I mean, I'm biased. I mean, my hometown. I have the most family members cheering me on. I'm familiar with the city. It's a flat course. It's the fall, which is a beautiful time of year. I'm in a running club locally, and all the runners are down there. Actually, my running club mans the mile 1 station. So my running club, Alpine Runners, mans that mile 1 station. So it's really neat.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's really neat running mile 1 and seeing my co-runners that maybe aren't running the race handing me Gatorade and drinks and stuff. So that's my favorite. And Boston is definitely up there too, just because you have to qualify to get in. So there's some work done there. And plus, it's very unusual. I almost think the hardest part about Boston is the bus ride, because they put us in the yellow school bus and they bus us out 26 miles outside of Boston to a high school, and then they tell you got to run back.
and what was your experience at London and Berlin? Did you enjoy the European marathon vibe?
Yes. In Berlin in 2021, I really enjoyed it. I mean, the people are very pleasant, very friendly. The weather was sunny. The only thing I was bummed about was the Oktoberfest was pretty dialed back because it was 2021, so I kind of missed out on that. But
you didn't get many of those German beers.
No, I still drank them. It just wasn't as many people celebrating with me.
And how about Tokyo? Look, it's been some journey that you started in 1977, and you're about to finish it in 2023. So, that's like 46 years to get your Abbott World Marathon Major 6-star. So it's been some time coming. I think that's even longer than Dina, who's my co-host on the show. It took her a while, but not quite that long. What are you most looking forward to about the race?
Well, the thing I'm looking forward to the most is seeing my wife. My wife will be joining me as well. My daughter will be out there with me too, so that would be kind of exciting to see a couple of my family members at the finish and experiencing a new country. I've never been to Japan or Tokyo, so that would be another thing. I've never been to Europe since 2021 when I went to Berlin. That was my very first trip to Berlin. 2022 in London, I've never been there. It was a great experience. So just kind of absorbing a new country, an experience, and then the camaraderie with all the runners, because we're all in this together. We all have the same goal. We want to finish. We want to do well. And it'll just be great meeting some new people.
And running in a bit like, running in the 70s in the US, running in Japan is absolutely huge. So the Tokyo Marathon, I think, has well over 500,000 applicants. And the setup for running in Japan, it's like baseball is to the US. You know, running is just such an incredible sport.
Hey, you're right. And speaking of baseball, that's one of the other experiences I'm going to absorb when I'm out there, because they actually have the World Baseball Classic in Japan while I'm out there. So I'm going to try to take in some of the games too.
So how long are you going for?
I'm going to be there for 8 days. Get in there the 3rd. I get in there Friday, pick up my packets Saturday, run the race Sunday.
And then enjoy 5 days, not the other way around. You're not going to
exactly
straight in, get the race done.
Yep.
And you've learned a lot in 72 marathons, and you know, what is your approach for Tokyo? You know, do you just want to finish? Are you trying to run a time? Like, how are you tackling it?
Tokyo, I want to finish under 4 hours, and I would like to qualify for Boston again, because after Tokyo, I'm running Boston the next month in April, so which is 6 weeks off, which is okay. That's fine, because I ran Berlin in 2021, and then 2 weeks later I ran Chicago, and I actually hit my Boston qualifier in Chicago that year, so I'm okay with running a marathon next month. So my goal is I like to get a Boston qualifier, and at my age, it's 3 hours and 50 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
3 hours and 50 minutes for my age.
Which, in a kind of really serendipitous way, is the same time you ran when you ran in 1977 and you finished Chicago.
Boy, I didn't even think about that till you told me, but you're right. So I'd like to run the same time I ran when I was 16 years old, so I can qualify for Boston.
That is really lovely.
Yes, that is.
Yeah. It's like 45 years different, and running the same time you did when you were that age. I don't think I could do that. 45 years ago, I'd have been 6. So I definitely wasn't running wasn't running marathons. You know, what do you feel? A couple of questions before we wrap. You've been running a long time. Running seems to have brought a great deal of joy, you know, to your life and family connection. What is it that's kept you running? You said, look, I didn't do marathons in that time off, but I did still run. Maybe not as much, but I did still run. You know, what advice would you have for people who are listening, you know, about longevity in a running career?
A good question. Don't be so hard on yourself. So I do not run every day, but I always do something every day. So if I'm not running every day, I'm walking, I'm doing something else. So you don't have to run every day, because a lot of people will run every day and kind of burn out. So if you want to just do something every day, it could be biking, it could be walking, it could be running, just stay active, and then make a game of it. Especially as a parent, when I was younger, I would run and my kids would ride their bike, and it was kind of interesting. My kids started riding their bike with me, and they found a wallet and they found some money. So after that, they always wanted to run with me, because we were always finding things.
Like a little treasure hunt. I still get excited when I find some money when I'm out running.
Oh, so yeah, so do I. You know, you'll find money, or you'll find purses.
Yeah.
You'll find crazy stuff.
So one final question for you. I'm assuming you're really excited, I hope you are, about picking up that 6-star medal. You know, it's a really beautiful thing. What are you going to do with it? Like, where's it going to sit? Around the house? Like, what are you going to do with it when you've got it? It's taken you 46 years to get it. Like, what's happening with it?
Well, I'm going to wear it for a while at least.
What, like another 47 years?
I'm not going to wear it that long, but I'm definitely going to wear it for a while. Maybe I'll wear it for a week.
I would.
Yes, definitely wear it for a week, and really enjoy it. Maybe put it in a frame somewhere. So that's a good question. Put it in with my bib number and stuff. But I mean, you put my other medals from my other races there. So, but that's a good question.
It's a celebration, isn't it? It's a life celebration thing for you. It's not just another medal. You've done, 72 marathons, 38 then majors. Like, you've got lots of medals. But this is kind of a life. It's like a life achievement award almost, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Because if I look at every medal, I could see 1977, 1981, 2009, 2021, 2022, 2023. It's a long Long span, that's for sure.
I think you need to decide where you're going to put it, like put it somewhere prominent, then take a picture and let us know where it is so that we can share in the prominence of your Abbott World Marathon Majors 6-star finishers medal. Make sure you do that. I want to see where it's going to be, Alfred.
I'd love to do that, Martin. I will definitely do that.
Okay. Listen, like it just leaves me to say good luck in Tokyo. Hope you travel safely there and back. And I hope you have a brilliant race experience, collect your medal, enjoy some baseball, and perhaps even a few beers.
You got it. Thank you, Martin. I really appreciate this time today.
What a great interview. We will be back in a couple of weeks, but what will you be up to until next time, Martin?
Well, I've written on our notes, Dina, I will be up to being Mr. Boring because, like Dina said, what are we doing? We'll talk a little bit about what we're doing at the start of the show, and she reeled off like all these amazing things she's doing around loads of travel and like all this stuff. And I thought, what am I doing? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm just like living out the mundane.
There's never a boring moment with Martin. I just want everyone to know that. He is taking his children about, he's maybe Mr. Taxi. Maybe you feel like Mr. Taxi sometimes, shuttling your kids around.
Got a few things going on, but largely dull. You?
I have a few birthdays to celebrate. My daughter's 12th birthday, my mom's 80th, and then I'll be going, drum roll, to the women's SEC basketball tournament in Greensville, South Carolina. I'm going to go watch some basketball.
Wow, that's amazing. Is that just because you like to watch basketball, or are you going there for any other reason?
I'm getting inducted to the SEC Hall of Fame from being at the University of Arkansas. So I'm going to an Arkansas game. They're 5-5 this season, so not too great. I don't know a lot about basketball, but I'll be a fan and be courtside cheering on the Hogs.
That is fantastic. Better swat up on your basketball stuff, Dina, so that you have make the most of the women's tournament when you're in Greensville. Hope you have loads of fun.
Thank you so much. And it is the same weekend that 3,000 6-star finishers will be crossing the finish line in Tokyo. So if you're not into your long runs right now, you are tapering for the Tokyo Marathon, and we want to wish you the best in your Tokyo journey. Enjoy the run wherever it takes you.